Hey folks, how you doing? This is Reverend Wayne S. Pierce with the 28th of October 2014. This is the Wayne S. Pierce Show podcast. A little mini podcast. Well, podcast. I'll see how long I can go. Lots of things going on, lots of things happening. First of all, let me remind you, tomorrow night, Thursday night, Friday night. Yes, just think about this for a minute. Tomorrow night, Thursday night, and Friday night, from Eastland Radio Repertory Theater, there's going to be a live broadcast for Halloween. Yes. These next 3 nights, you can go to eastlandradiotheater.weebly.com and hear a live broadcast of some scary radio plays from the past. Yes. Before I was promoting one that I wrote, but, well, as you writers out there know, some things just don't get done in time, so I couldn't do that. So, tomorrow night, Eastland Radio Repertory Theater and New West Theater Group presents a Halloween special. Go to Spreaker.com and go check out Eastland Radio Repertory Theater. Better yet, go to eastlandradiotheater.weebly.com tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern, and hear some Halloween scary stories. So, anyway, just a little something. So many things are going on, so many things are happening, so many things are just falling apart. And yes, things are falling apart. I find it odd, and it's just me, but I find it odd that when people are examining what's going on and trying to make sense of it, I find that there's hardly any admission to any wrong. Do you see that? So some situations require a person to take a hard, long look at what is happening and then draw a conclusion upon the things that they see. And I do that, and I examine more than just what's on the surface. And again, I find that people will not admit, number one, when they are wrong, and number two, admit there is anything wrong. In other words, if you don't see anything wrong with something, why would you admit to it, right? Well, I'm seeing too much of that, and too many people are getting away with too much. So, think about that one, folks. How are you going to stop it? What are you going to, what are you going to do? So, a lot of things are happening. Hey, I'm going to come back from this break. We'll get into, I'll give you some articles and all of that. If you go to the Wayne S. Pierce Show Facebook page, you can check out what I'll be reading about. If it's not up there right now as of this recording, then it will soon be there. So keep your shorts on. So I'll be back right after this. This is Reverend Wayne S. Pierce from the Free America Radio Network. Come join me on The Views Expressed Live, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, on freeamericaradio.us. Hey, welcome back. This is Reverend Wayne S. Pierce right here for the 28th of October 2014. This is the Wayne S. Pierce Show podcast. How are you? You doing good? Hope so. It's Tuesday. It's a day after Monday, a day before hump day, and yeah, you're kind of stuck in between going, what the hell? It's like, Is Friday here yet? Yeah, I hear that a lot. Yep. So, let's go here, shall we? This is a show that I'm going to tell you the truth and get rid of all the BS. How's that? I don't know how credible this site is, so you may want to go look this up yourself. YourNewsWire.com. Okay? YourNewsWire.com. Insider reveals entire New World Order agenda in 1969 and is killed. The article can also be found at beforeitsnews.com. Okay. Dr. Lawrence Dunnigan was invited to go to a speaking event by Dr. Richard Day, chief of Arranged Parenthood, back in 1969, in a room of about 90 specialists. They were not allowed to have any recording devices in the room, nor be allowed to take notes. What they did know was that Dr. Dunnigan had near what they didn't know was that Dr. Dunnigan had near photographic memory, and Dr. Day's hypnotic suggestion at the end of the event didn't seem to have any effect on Dr. Dunnigan. As soon as Dr. Dunnigan arrived home, he wrote down everything that he could remember. 20 years later, he took out his notes and made sound recordings of them. Shortly after Dr. Dunnigan started dispersing his audio tapes, Dr. Day passes away. Dr. Day said in a lecture that he would be in real trouble if this information got out. In 1987, when Dr. Dunnigan came out with the tape detailing the entire New World Order agenda, Dr. Dunnigan dies. He died in the same year the tape came out. Did they kill him? You must listen to the entire audio recording. And now for a partial list of the items covered. There are a lot of things there, folks, but let me say this. If this is true, this is after the fact. If this article was written, by the author, you can say that this is after the fact. I do say it's after the fact because of some of the things that I've seen here, such as individuals will need to get used to change. How many times in the past 30 years have you heard that, folks? The true and the expressed objectives. You've heard things pertaining to that as well. Population control. Bill Gates and Ted Turner talked about that in the last 5 years. Authorized to have babies. China's doing that and has done that for quite some time. Tax-funded abortion as population control. That's been going on since Roe versus Wade, and the person that went to court back then to get abortion legalized, basically, is now a born-again Christian fighting against abortion. So there you go. Encouraging homosexuality, sex, anything goes. And that was, got to remember, 1969. We remember that as well. And of course, coming from that in 1979, 1980, 81, we hear about this strange disease that is killing people. And we find out later on it's HIV. It's also AIDS. Families to diminish in importance. If I can read that correctly, let me say that again. Families to diminish in importance, which is going on and has gone on for the last 40 years at least. Blending all religions. The old religions will have to go. This is happening now, and has happened, is moving very quickly in that direction. Changing the Bible through revisions of key words. Have you seen everything after the King James Version? the New American Standard, the New International Version, the American Standard Version. Yeah, versions. Restructuring education as a tool of indoctrination. I knew this from the mid-70s, folks, and I was only a kid. Trust me, I'm well educated. More time in schools, but they, quote-unquote, wouldn't learn anything. In other words, Common Core, confused, longer hours, more kids in school, year-round school. Yeah, name it. There you go. Controlling who has access to information. That's been going on for quite some time. Schools as a hub of community. This is communitarianism, which Nikki Rapana says is a bad thing, and it is a bad thing. Communitarianism, it's one step away from authoritarianism. Think about it. Some books would just disappear from the libraries, and they have, such as the Bible and other works of great importance that would help us spiritually understand what's physically happening to us. And if you notice anything else on the shelves, such as, anything that pertains to, our lives and what we need to do, and all this is still there. Changing laws. That's been going on for quite some time. Encouragement of drug abuse to create a jungle atmosphere. Let me say that again, because this has been going on since the late 50s, early 60s. Encouragement of drug abuse to create a jungle atmosphere. Alcohol abuse. We all know about that. That's self-explanatory. Restrictions on travel. This is happening as we speak. The need for more jails and using hospitals as jails. This is happening. Change. It's also happening. Global interdependence. Global interdependence. Quote, to create a new structure, you first have to tear down the old. Unquote. Patriotism would go down the drain, and it is being pushed in that direction right now, folks. Loss of jobs, loss of security, that's been happening for quite some time. Aside population shifts to eliminate traditions, this is happening. How many times have your children come home from school and said, Mom, Dad, we're not having a Christmas production this year because they're calling it a winter production, a winter festival, because they don't want to offend anybody. So why don't, you mom and dads go down to the school and give them a piece of your mind. Patriotism, again, will go down a drain. Loss of jobs, loss of security. Here's the other thing, folks. This is really, really important to understand that this is what's happening. Hunting. Don't know what that means. Don't know why this article has this. There's a list of things in here. Don't know why. Sports for girls to dehumanize femininity. This is, again, 1969. This has come out. And we see this after the fact. And I say that in a very positive way because we see this happening right now. Entertainment, violence, sex, and more sex desensitization, preparing the people for human casualties. Now, the words human casualties has been talked about in the last several years because more and more of these FEMA coffins, actually they're the covers for the coffins. I should know. I used to work in the funeral business and know what they look like. And they're being used to, apparently, in some theories, have been said to, that are going to be used for putting bodies in, mass graves, that kind of thing. So I don't know. We'll leave that out in the air. Okay? Give us the young. This is what the New World Order agenda is. Give us the young. Indoctrinate the young. Indoctrinate your children with New World Order, Common Core, bullcrap, political correctness, and not allow them to grow on their own. Okay? 80s and 90s, the Grim Reaper, travel restrictions, national ID, the chip, etc. Now, this is all from 1969, remember? Food control, they're doing that now. Corporate farming, basically, is what it is. Or I should say, corporate farming. Weather control, chemtrails, yada, yada, yada. You all know about that. This is from 1969. I'm going to put this on the Wayne S. Pierce Show Facebook page so you can look at this yourself. Know how people respond. Make them do what you want. Didn't Facebook come out and apologize for behavioral manipulation through posts that they put up to see how people would react? There you go. Falsified scientific research. Can you say global warming? Acceptance of the UN. The end justifies the means. That's their whole business, folks. War is good. You get to be cannon fodder. Keep the population down and die a hero. Terrorism, the great tool for control. And that's what's happening now. Money and banking. That's been manipulated for many, many years, about 100 years or more. Big Brother is watching you while you're watching TV. I've known about the technology behind what you would know as the Kinect or your laptop cameras or your webcams. I've known about that technology since about 93, 94. And what I saw scared the hell out of me then, and it still bugs me today. Okay? Privately owned homes, quote, a thing of the past, unquote. By the way, you can own the building on the lot that you live on that you say is your property. But if you're paying property taxes every year, you're leasing that property from the federal government. Okay? Just want to let you know. Euthanasia and the demise pill. I haven't heard of that one. Limiting access to affordable medical care makes eliminating the elderly easier. Can you say Obamacare? Planning the control over medicine. Yes, that's happening now. Elimination of private doctors. That's happening now. New difficult to diagnose and untreatable diseases. That is happening now. Suppressing cancer cures as a means of population control. Cancer. That is happening now. Inducing heart attacks as a form of assassination. Can you say psi weapons or psi weaponry? I've known about psi weaponry since 1985, 86. Okay. Education is a tool for accelerating the onset of puberty and evolution. That's an interesting concept, isn't it? Education is a tool for accelerating the onset of puberty and evolution, Redirecting the purpose behind sex. Sex without generation and propagation without sex. In other words, do it. Who cares about having kids, all this, and the other thing. And it says here, all things considered from populace control, the regular next step then was sex. He said sex must be divided from manipulation. Sex is excessively pleasurable and urges are so solid it is not possible anticipate that individuals will surrender it. To place chemicals in the foods that we eat and in the water supply to diminish the sex drive is not practical. The technique then would be not to reduce the sex movement, yet to increase sexual activity, however, in such a way to the point that individuals won't be having children. In other words, massive freaking orgy, folks. Hedonistic concepts behind that. Contraception, all-around access to all. In other words, there you go. Contraceptives would be displayed much more prominently in pharmacies. Contraceptives would be advertised, and contraceptives would be dispensed in schools in association with sex education, and they are. Sex education as an instrument of world government. The goal of sex education was to get kids interested early, making the connection between sex and the need for contraception early in their lives, even before they became very active. The accumulating of a new framework, he said, most likely would happen on a weekend in the winter. Everything would close down on Friday night and Monday morning. when everyone was woke up, there would be an advertisement that the new system was set up. Amid the procedure in getting the United States prepared for those progressions, everyone would be busier with less relaxation time and less chance to truly look about and see what was happening around them. In other words, I've said this before, if this article is true, then it's truly after the fact. Okay? And I really, 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 really do not understand why people don't get it. Okay? I really don't. I don't know. Okay? I don't know. I guess, might be me, I guess that I overlooked a few things as I was researching this material over 30 years ago. I don't know. Some of this stuff is new to me. Some of this stuff makes me, think, wow, Some of it I have never heard before. But all in all, when you put yourself in a position to where you, let's just say, when you put yourself in a position where you're going to open up about what's happening behind the scenes, consider yourself a target. Okay, you might as well just walk around with a big-ass target on you saying, look, I got this information that can bring down the New World Order, and guess what? I already know it. Okay, so here's the target. Do whatever you want. In 1969, Rockefeller official said U.S. would be deindustrialized. Slightly revised from December 2008 by Dr. Henry Macau, Ph.D. On March 20th, 1969, Dr. Richard Day, the National Medical Director of the Rockefeller-sponsored Planned Parenthood, told a meeting that American industry will be sabotaged and shown to be unreliable and uncompetitive. In view of the recent bankruptcy of General Motors, his remarks are especially pertinent. Let me put this other article I just read from before on the Wayne S. Pierce Show Facebook page, because you guys need to really pay attention to this. Okay? Let me do that. And I'll talk about this on the Views Express today, too, at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern. So check it out. This week it's going to be 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern. So let me read this other part of this other article before the bottom of the hour break. Quote, the stated plan was that different parts of the world would be assigned different roles of industry and commerce in a unified global system. The continued preeminence of the United States and the relative independence and self-sufficiency of the United States would have to be changed in order to create a new structure. You first have to tear down the old, and the American industry was one example of that, unquote. Quote, each part of the world will have a specialty and thus become interdependent, he said. The U.S. will remain a center of agriculture, high-tech, communications, and education, but heavy industry would be transported out, unquote. Can you say NAFTA and GATT and outsourcing? These remarks to the Pittsburgh Pediatric Society were reported by Dr. Lawrence Dunnigan, a Pittsburgh pediatrician who died in January of 2004. The speech described, quote, a new world system, unquote, already in place, which would permanently transform the world. Dr. Day, who died in 1989, see obit below, wanted the 80 or so physicians present to be prepared. Dunnigan recalls, quote, the idea was you could get a little bit disgusted with your Ford, GM, or Chrysler product or whatever, because little things like window handles would fall off more, and plastic parts would break, which, had they been made of metal, would hold up. Your patriotism about buying American would soon give way to practicality that if you bought Japanese, German, or imported, that it would last longer and you would be better off. Patriotism would go down the drain then, unquote. Now, I'm going to put what I'm reading from up on the Wayne S. Pierce Show Facebook page as well. I'm going to tell you something, folks, right now. It's time that we really blast the system as much as we possibly can with the idea of freedom, liberty, peace, security in this nation. Okay? Now, I say that because we have an opportunity here, folks. And that opportunity will give way to a new America, to a new republic. We have to understand that we are the ones who are guiding this whole system, and we will rebuild it and restore it and make it better for the future generation. Long after I'm gone, long after you're gone, we have to stop this bull crap now. A lot of people said, well, it's too late. A lot of people say it has to collapse. Well, I'm going to say this. Yes, the United States of America, as we know it today, will collapse. I'm saying, what are you going to replace it with? You want a country of, by, and for the people and a new republic that stand on the principles for peace, freedom, security, and liberty in this nation? Or do you want a massive communistic rule that's going to tear you up, spit you out, kick you to the curb, and throw you in the trash? Do you want that? I know I don't. I know I don't. I know I want something better. I know I want something better for my nieces and, all of that. I know I want something better for my family. But as far as all this information about a new world order, you have to go back to prior to 1969. You got to go back to 1947. You got to go back to 1954 specifically. And you can even go back prior to that and go to 1913 and look at what the Rockefellers did back then. Oh, I'm sure they worked with the Kennedys, but, that's a whole different story in and of itself. The facts are facts, folks. You're not going to get around it. It's right there. Okay? I just find it incredibly odd that people are going to sit back and not accept facts, not accept these things for what they are. I'm to be totally honest, it pisses me off that people don't pay attention. I usually use the analogy of me standing on the side of the road with a big sign that says the bridge is out, and everybody's, people driving by going, wow, that bridge has been up for 40 years. It's not out. Really? The bridge is out. Hello? Got a big sign that says the bridge is out, and yes, I saw it. It's out. It's not out. And they go off into the ravine, not paying attention to the person that's standing next to the road saying the bridge is out. Free America Radio at USA.com. Free America Radio at USA.com is the email address. The Wayne S. Pierce Show.weebly.com is the website. Go check it out. The Wayne S. Pierce Show.weebly.com. And I shall return right after this. Local radio with a worldwide connection. The Free America Radio Network. Go to www.freeamericaradio.us. This is Wayne S. Pierce from the Free America Radio Network, and we are looking for sponsors. If you want to sponsor any of the shows on the Free America Radio Network, email us at freeamericaradio@usa.com. Our website is freeamericaradio.us. This is Reverend Wayne S. Pierce from the Free America Radio Network. Come join me on the Views Expressed live, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, on freeamericaradio.us. Hey folks, how you doing? This is Reverend Wayne S. Pierce with the 28th of October 2014. How you doing? Welcome back. Welcome back. Marcia Strausman from the Welcome Back Cotter series has passed away. She was 66. I would advise women go out and do their breast exams. That's what she died from. Rest in peace, Mrs. Qatar. So anyway, where shall we go? Let's go here, shall we? Let's see what's at Yahoo News. Like, they're credible. You know what I mean? I don't know, man. I don't know. News.yahoo.com. Okay. Now, I'm not sure. I'm seriously not sure why people would believe the state-run media. Oh, here I am reading from Yahoo News. I don't know why people would even believe the news. I'm just curious. I'm just curious. Okay? Now, if they actually had real news, I'd be surprised. I would. I'd even be supportive of them telling the truth if they had actually told the story with the truth. In other words, doing their job as investigative journalists to report the facts. I would support that, but they don't, because they're state-run media. They're owned, they're operated, they're managed. Yeah, and people are going to tell me, well, they're not state-run. Yeah, they are. You go start backtracking the news organizations, and the paths will lead you straight to these people that are running Washington, D.C. All right? I mean, you'll see it. It's right. It's right there in your face. But let's go to news.yahoo.com. I'm going to put this up on the Wayne S. Pierce Show Facebook page as well. U.S. Embassy in Moscow faces Cold War-era harassment. Our president here in the United States has not been so cordial to Mr. Putin. One American diplomat's tires were slashed. Another person's email was hacked. Still others reported mysterious break-ins. By the way, this article was written by Kurta Radia posted yesterday on Yahoo, 27th of October, 2014. Continuing, the incidents are all signs. U.S. officials and experts say that aggressive Soviet-era counterintelligence tactics are back in fashion in Russia. The number of incidents targeting American diplomats in Moscow has increased in recent years to levels not seen since the Cold War. This is interesting, isn't it? Very, very interesting. It's very interesting because, as I said before, people don't want, I've said this in many occasions in many ways, people don't want to admit when they're wrong. So when they look out at the vastness of what's going on, they just want to walk into their home, close their door, and just forget about it. Okay, so interesting. That's why I say it's interesting. But anyway, how is it? Let me go off into this direction and let me tell you a little bit more about this. Well, let me get back to this article and let me give you some opinion about what I believe is happening in the U.S. pertaining to this article, actually. Now, let me go back here. It says the number of incidences targeting American diplomats in Moscow has increased in recent years to levels not seen since the Cold War. And this is, what's the Cold War? The buildup of military equipment, specifically ICBM, nuclear missiles, this kind of thing. Taken together, they paint an escalating pattern of intimidation and harassment that is believed to be led by Russia's Federal Security Services, a successor to the Soviet KGB. The trend has alarmed officials back in Washington who have complained about the treatment to Russian officials at the highest levels, including President Vladimir Putin. Officials said that the level of harassment increased sharply this year as U.S.-Russian relationships plunged to their lowest level in decades amid the Ukraine crisis. They and others interviewed for this article spoke on the condition of anonymity in order to discuss sensitive diplomatic and security matters. The embassy first noticed an uptick when anti-government protests began in late 2011. The embassy officials observing the rallies were tailed closely by Russian security agents. It marked first ripples to a tidal wave of anti-Americanism whipped up by state-run media. The drumbeat really began to pick up, however, after Putin returned to the Kremlin in 2012, and in particularly egregious breach of diplomatic protocol. Some of the most conspicuous and aggressive actions targeted Michael McFaul, who was the U.S. Embassy until last February. The U.S. Ambassador, I should say, until last February. The concern was noted in a periodic audit by the State Department's internal watchdog, which was published late last year. Quote, across Mission Russia, employees face intensified pressure by the Russian security services at a level not seen since the days of the Cold War, unquote, the Office of Inspector General wrote. The report referenced a, quote-unquote, separate classified annex on security issues that has not been made public. Officials familiar with the annex said it devoted more attention to harassment of embassy staff than previous reports. In a rare public acknowledgement of this issue, when asked about the IG's report, embassy spokesman Will Stevens told ABC News, quote, embassy and State Department officials have discussed issues of harassment of American staff with various interlocutors, I believe, within the Russian government, unquote. Now, I'm going to put this up on the Wayne S. Pierce Show Facebook page because I believe that this is very, very important, because when you think harassment, what do you think? But when you think Russian harassment of U.S. Embassy employees and staff, then what do you think? You got to put all of it into the mix, folks. Because it's not just one thing, it's a bunch of things. It's not just one area of harassment, it's a whole bunch of things. It's not just one little thing that this... No. It's a whole mess of things. Okay? I mean, that really stands out to be one of the key reasons why we don't have decent relationships with Russia like we used to have. Okay? So think about that one. All right? It's one of those things, folks. I mean, you really have to pay attention to this stuff. Now, Obama says U.S. can't shy away from the Ebola battle. Yeah, it's a scare tactic, folks. Go look it up. Is it real? Is it not real? Well, there's collateral damage that the people who started all this want to see due to the fact that the body count has to be so high to where they will declare martial law. And when you look back in history, how did they call martial law? How did they implement it? They implemented it after a particular virus or bacteria got out of hand and people began to die. Go look it up. It's not just that. There's other things involved with it as well. Lover, hater, ignorer, thinks she's a total ditz. Sarah Palin hopes to run for office again someday. Just wanted to mention that. Mugabe warns of action against frontmen for foreign firms. Isn't that? Yeah, there you go. That's one thing. Russia angers Ukraine by backing for rebel Poles. Well, we just talked about the Russian-Ukraine situation, didn't we? Let me look at this article here. Mugabe warns of action against frontmen for foreign firms. This is from American Free Press, AFP. Zimbabwean President Robert Mugabe opened Parliament Tuesday with a warning that locals who front for foreign firms trying to dodge indigenation laws face, quote, decisive action, unquote. Quote, it is depressing that some of our people have turned themselves into mere fronts for foreign investors, unquote, he said, doubling down on controversial rules that bar foreign companies from holding majority stakes. Quote, decisive action shall indeed be taken to address these negative developments and to strengthen the general enforcement of the relevant legislation, he said. It is his near half-hour address. The 90-year-old veteran leader avoided talking about rampant speculation over who will succeed him and increasingly visible splits in his ZANU-PF party. Yeah, ZANU. Z-A-N-U. Instead, he attacked foreign sanctions and indigenation topics which have been the bread and butter of his oratory in recent years. In 2007, Zimbabwe enacted a so-called indigenation law, forcing foreign-owned firms to hand over at least 51% of shareholding to the local partners. Companies don't like that, folks. They don't like you coming in saying, you're going to give us, this and this and this. They don't like that, okay? Just letting you know, Mugabe said the law, which followed controversial land seizures launched in 2000, was meant to reverse imbalances which resulted from colonial rule. The law has forced mining firms, including the country's biggest platinum miner, Zimplats, and international banks such as EcoBank, to cede 51% of their shares to the locals. Critics say the law benefits Mugabe's close allies while scaring off foreign investors at a time the country is in dire need of investment and is experiencing a liquidity crunch. Zimbabwe police on Tuesday detained 3 protesters calling on Mugabe to step down over his government's failure to fix the economy, a lawyers group said. Quote, 3 activists were picked up by riot police during a peaceful demonstration, and they are currently detained, unquote. Kumbirai Mafunda. I don't speak Zimbabwe, so I know I probably butchered his name. Spokesman for the Zimbabwe Lawyers of Human Rights told AFP what he told them was 3 activists were picked up by riot police during a peaceful demonstration, and they were currently detained. Now, you can read a lot into that. Mafunda said the trio, including journalist turned activist Itai Zamara, had earlier been beaten up by Mugabe supporters who gathered in public square as Mugabe opened parliament. For over a week, the activists have been staging a protest in a municipal park adjacent to the parliament, brandishing banners demanding Mugabe's resignation, the lawyers said. Quote, "Failed Mugabe must step down," unquote, read one banner, while another said, quote, "Corruption has killed the economy," unquote. Police spokespeople were not available to confirm the detention or if charges had been laid. Previous demonstrations against Mugabe's government have been brutally put down by security services. Okay? Folks, I mean, there are times when you just have to look at this stuff and say, what the hell is going on? There are times you should look at this stuff and say that. Question everything that you hear. Question everything that you know. And frankly, to be totally honest with you, I don't think there's a time or a place that does not require you to ask questions. Now, I know that might be, oh, duh, figure that one out. But this is true. How many times have you seen a situation where you just went, what? Yeah. I think it's time you start questioning all your leaders and holding up, specifically in the United States, holding up to their faces the Constitution and the Bill of Rights prior to 1871, and you tell them this is what you go by. If not, we want your resignation in less than 72 hours. You have a right to do that because under the Constitution and the Bill of Rights and under the Declaration of Independence, you have the obligation and the duty to demand that these people step down. If they do not write laws pertaining to the benefit of the people and only to their benefit, they are corrupt. Period. I know a lot of people are going to hate me for that, but you know what? I don't care. I know what I know because I've studied what I've studied. And I see it with my own eyes. Okay? Demand that your leaders either do what people want or step down. That's just the way it is. Okay? Here's something in this last segment of the show. News.yahoo.com, power shifts to outsiders in U.S. Senate fight. The days of candidates dominating their own political campaigns are over. In the most competitive U.S. Senate races this year, big money special interests that proliferated after the U.S. Supreme Court's Citizen United versus Federal Election Commission decision are routinely out-muscling and out-messaging the candidates themselves. This power shift is most prominent on television, where super PACs and political active nonprofits both may accept unlimited contributions, routinely account for nearly 1 out of every 2 ads run in a U.S. Senate race. Most of the ads are decidedly negative, and they've collectively cost hundreds of millions of dollars, with Election Day still 10 days away. Wealthy liberals and conservatives alike are complicit, pumping money into these groups that, by law, may not operate, quote, in concert or cooperation with, unquote, the candidates or parties they seek to boost. This stands in stark contrast to the 2010 midterm election, when the GOP embraced super PACs while Democrats shunned them. Now, big dollar liberal groups sometimes trump their conservative counterparts, as both seek to support candidates who will help them helped their preferred party win control of the U.S. Senate during the final 2 years of Barack Obama's presidency. The Democratic Party is defending more than half a dozen seats on the Republican-friendly turf. The GOP will seize power if it picks up 6 seats. These stakes have created a financial arms race that will almost certainly make this election historically expensive. Quote, everybody wants to have one more everybody wants to have one more nuke than the other guy does, unquote, says Kathy Kiley, managing editor of the nonpartisan Sunlight Foundation, which tracks money in politics. When it comes to money, 2 Democratic super PACs reigned supreme through mid-October, according to a Center for Public Integrity review of filings submitted to the Federal Election Commission Thursday. Next Gen Climate Action, a super PAC primarily funded by billionaire environmentalist Tom Steyer, that aims to, quote, prevent climate disaster and preserve American prosperity, unquote, has raised more than $76 million since it was launched in 2013. No other super PAC has raised more. Earning the number 2 spot was Democratic-aligned Senate Majority PAC, a group run by allies of Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid, Democrat of Nevada. It had raised more than $53 million as of October 15th, including $5.5 million from Steyer and his Next Generation Climate Action Super PAC. The top 3 Republican super PACs, meanwhile, raised nearly $68 million combined through mid-October, according to the recent FEC filings report. That includes $28 million raised by American Crossroads, a super PAC launched after Citizens United ruling in 2010, with assistance from GOP strategist Karl Rove. The Freedom Partners Action Fund, the super PAC backed by conservative billionaire industrialists Charles and David Koch, and their donor network raised more than $20 million. And nearly $19 million was raised by the Ending Spending Action Fund, a group founded by longtime Republican donor Joe Ricketts and a former head of the online brokerage firm TA Ameritrade, whose family owns the Chicago Cubs baseball team. Nonprofits, which aren't required to disclose the same financial details to the FEC and may generally keep their funders' names secret, have also played a major role during the 2014 battle for the Senate, especially on the conservative side. Most notably, groups within Koch brothers' political network reportedly plan to spend as much as $290 million. On the television airwaves, though, where voters still consume most of their political information, arms race metaphors are particularly apropos. In the 12 most competitive U.S. Senate races, liberals and conservatives have nearly fought to a draw. I'm going to put the rest of this up on Free America Radio, that too, on the Wayne S. Pierce Show Facebook page. And I will be talking about this as well on the views expressed today. So please come join me. I'll probably read the rest of it there. Excuse me. The thing that people have to, in my point of view, from my perspective, the things that people need to remember is this. We have a corrupt system. This system was allowed to become corrupt by the lack of education and research and investigation the people did. In other words, they didn't want to, most of them, so they didn't care. And they just went in their homes and they closed their doors and they just let things happen the way that they happen. Did you know that less than 50% of the population, less than 50% of the voting population in America vote? Did you know that? I mean, you look at the popularity polls of the president, of the senators, of the House of Representatives, and all of that. You look at that, and then you ask me, how did these people become senators, become representatives? How? There's a whole different show about that too. You can go back and look at their history, look at their track record, where they came from, all this. And you will see how they became, how their offices were bought for and how their positions were manipulated, or I should say how they were manipulated to get in those positions by the people that have all the money. That's why I believe that political action committees, the PACs that were talked about in the article, just need to be abolished. Nonprofits should disclose their funder's name with an option that it would have to be given in writing by the funder to do so. Other than that, if they don't want people to know who's supporting who, then don't do it. But political action committees should be abolished. Lobbyists should be fired. Special interest groups should be disbanded. Well, how is anything going to get done in Washington? Well, it's pretty easy. I think we can do it ourselves. We need to shut Washington down. Let's turn the White House and the Congress building and all of that into a museum. We can do that. Why not? You want a president? Okay. Well, he shouldn't live there in Washington, D.C. Congress should only meet 4 times a year. The president shouldn't be living in Washington, D.C. He should have a job like the rest of us. And, by the way, there should be no attorneys running for any public office. In other words, any political office such as Senator, House of Representatives, or President, or Congress, or anything of that nature. No. Well, how is they're the ones that know the law. It's not going to take a freaking rocket scientist to sit down and open a book and read about certain laws and things like that. I mean, people have to get educated. Do you know why people keep voting the same people into office? Because they're getting free stuff. They're getting what they want. And they're not lifting a finger to get it. So, of course, somebody is going to vote that person back into office to get what they want for free. They won't have to lift a finger. I'm sorry if that offends people, but that's just the way it is. That's just the way it is. Well, folks, I'm going to be leaving here in about 2.5 minutes, going away and stuff like that. But anyway, hey, remember, tomorrow night, Thursday night, and Friday night, a Halloween special on Spreaker.com at Eastland Radio Repertory Theater. Let me say that slowly so you get it. Eastland Radio Repertory Theater on Spreaker.com. There's going to be some radio plays, some old-time radio plays being broadcast tomorrow, Thursday, and Friday. And I would like you to join me. Eastland Radio Repertory Theater tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern, right there on Spreaker.com, or you can go to the website at eastlandradiotheater.weebly.com. That's eastlandradiotheater.weebly.com tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern. That's Eastland Radio Repertory Theater on Spreaker.com. And come join me, man. I want you to hear some old-time radio shows. So there you go. Anyway, if you have any questions, comments, concerns about this program, please email me, freeamericaradio@usa.com, freeamericaradio@usa.com. If you want to sponsor the show, you can. Please do. I appreciate your support. You can donate as well, and also get your emergency food supply as much as you can to help out your family and Free America Radio Network to keep this show and other shows on the air. Thank you. Appreciate your support. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, again, the email is freeamericaradio@usa.com, freeamericaradio@usa.com, or you can go to the website, thewaynespearceshow.weebly.com. That's thewaynespearceshow.weebly.com. Have a great day.